talking about this. Last week, we took that, one step beyond, and we kind of went actually where, come on right up here, come on up here, Kevin, be with us. I need some customers up in the front here, but he's not going. Oh, he is going to come. Oh, look at this. He's coming right. Looks like a regular church, walking up the aisle and everything. Okay, Kev.
You're all right?
It's nice and balanced, yeah.
That's nice and balanced, I'd say. Anyhow, but what I'm talking about, which will seem very strange to you and to many people who tune in this, and it's going to get more strange as we go from here on, because we're going to really, I think we've covered the scientific principles, and we've covered most of the biblical principles. One of the great things on television now is people are diving in the Red Sea and coming up saying they found wheels from the Pharaoh's chariots, and other people are saying they're not really wheels, it's all kinds of, what do they call that stuff? Yeah, the hard stuff.
Oh, the
Corals,
corals?
Anyhow, everybody, they're still looking, people are desperately looking for, things to show that, this guy opened the ocean and all this stuff. But anyhow, the things that we're going to talk about are far more strange than that. And here's the thing. When you start talking about the invisible, and you start talking about the reality of personage, consciousness, intelligence, people, in a realm that's invisible, for the most part, like in religion, they say we got to have faith and all this stuff. But I'll prove it. And of course, the average person is going to say it's impossible to prove because it's invisible. It's in the cosmos. You can't prove such a thing. But you will see that inside of you, something inside of you will say, hey, this makes sense. Something inside of you will say, this is logical. This is reasonable. I think this is true. In other words, proof only can find acceptance inside of you. So it will be coming from inside of you that this is true. There's a great quote somebody made a long time ago. I don't know who it was, but they said, to those who are willing, no proof is necessary, and to those who are not, no proof is possible. So proof has to be determined inside of yourself. You may not even be able to tell it to anybody. You might not even be able to say to anybody, well, I know this is true because, then you're going to try to go prove it. See? And unless you can get somebody to sit down and go through this whole thing and understand it, they feel that same thing inside of them that you may feel inside of you. Of course, you may not, but we'll see. So, the premise we are developing here is that a body is just a body until that body receives the light that makes it a human being, okay? Quickly again, you have light, you have a body, equals a human being. You have light, you have a body, equals a dog. Well, it's a different kind of light. This may be, well, for the sake of discussion, we'll call it a canine light. And this, for the sake of discussion, we'll call a person light. So you got all kinds of light. Well, it's not unusual. I mean, you got lights on the wall here. That's one kind of light. You got spotlights. That's another kind of light. You got floodlights. That's another kind of light. You got neon light. You got all kinds of different light. It's not dissimilar because of the fact that the body is an electrical instrument, and it carries electricity, which makes it operate, and that's what we are. If this dies, that's no longer a dead person, it's a dead body. Okay? You know, everybody has to say, police took the person out, you know, and took him to the morgue. They took the body. Because the light left the body. You get that light and body when you got a human being, you put him in the hospital, and they hook him up to these EEGs or whatever, you see the thing going boop, 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 boop. But once that's gone, you hook him up and there's nothing there. Why? Because there's nobody inside. Right now we got people sitting in here and there's cars out in the parking lot. Well, the cars out in the parking lot are really not capable of doing anything. If they stay there long enough, they'll just rust and rot. But once the people that are in here get inside of those cars become very intelligent. They can go to New York, they can go to Atlantic City, you know, all kinds of stuff. And it's because there's an intelligence inside the body. You can take it from here all the way down. You can take it all the way down maybe to a flea. You ever see a little flea and it jumps? What the heck is making that thing jump? It's just a little piece of what? Dust. But there's dust doesn't jump, but a flea jumps. How come? Because there's a life force inside. We're watching. We have these gutters we had fixed on the house, and we saw one day birds in there, and they're making a bird nest and so forth. And so how could they get in there? We just had to. Well, the guy comes. He says we forgot to cap it at the end, and so the birds went in. What struck me, and we left them, but what struck me as interesting was that little bird made an intelligent decision. Okay? That's where I'm going to put the nest. It had never been up there before. It saw something, it observed, and the little bird made a decision, which means the little bird was intelligent. The little bird was capable of making a decision. Oh, you say, well, they're not as smart as we are. What? They're much smarter in what they do than we are. They can fly. We can't. You see, to birds, they avoid us because we are the creepy, crawly things on the earth. They soar with the wind. So to a bird, they're much higher. They want any part of you. You're the lower species. Now, to us, the ants are the lower species. So all things are relative, say. And so here's the premise then. What we're talking about, religion. Of course, religion concentrates on the body. They're stuck. They call about the spirit and the soul and all this stuff. But simply, when they talk about the spirit and the soul, those are religious words that were cooked up many, many years ago to try in some way to define the energy and the power that is hidden and invisible, which is actually light, electromagnetism. In other words, what they call spirit is light. What they call soul is light. Because the premise here, and what we'll prove, is that intelligence, decision-making, power, etc., is not in the body. It's in the light. It is the light that's intelligent. The body contains a brain in the same way that a piece of plastic sitting on your desk contains computer. Well, that computer is totally irrelevant unless there's light or intelligence to operate it. Okay? And that's what's going on. So this is what we're setting up here. It is the light that is intelligent. It is the light that leaves the body when the body can no longer support it. So now we come up with the question, well, can the light communicate? Where does the light go after the light's out of the body? And we'll address all of that. And you say, well, you can't prove that. Well, I can. I can prove it to the extent that you will find inside of yourself saying, hey, this sounds pretty reasonable. It sounds logical. See? So you turn around and you say, look, I am a human being because there is a light which is me inside. All right? You have a body, but as we said before, an ant has a body. A bird has a body. An elephant has a body. A tree has a body. But all of them have a light inside which make them a living being. Yes, a tree is a living being. Have you seen a dead tree? There's no comparison between a dead tree and a tree that's filled with life. Right? There's light in it. Well, it's a different kind of body than you, but nonetheless it's a body. It's a different kind of being than you, but nonetheless it's a being. An ant certainly and a flea certainly is different than you, but they are living things. Oh, so we can step on them. Well, we do, see? But that doesn't change the course at all, because elephants can step on you. You see, and everything moves. So what we do, we take from the lowest thing, we take to a microbe, we take from a little thing under a microscope that moves around. There's energy in there, there's electricity in there, there's a being in there, there's some kind of intelligence in there. We can't comprehend it, but it's there. Okay? It's a living thing. So now what we do is we take this and we raise it and we go beyond the person, we go beyond the elephant, we go beyond, and we go up into a higher, and we see above us bodies that are filled with electromagnetism that are sending impulses to the earth, and we say, well, then what kind of intelligence is in there? See? So the problem with all of this, though, is that identifying this light that is you. In other words, think of this for a minute. You're seeing me move all of this stuff. You know, here's the hands moving, the mouth's moving, I'm moving around. But realizing, you know, inside of all of you, I mean, what you are is meat. And if you don't think it, you know, you get inside of a cage with a lion and you'll find out how delicious you are. So, I mean, that's all it is. And how does this meat become intelligent? Meat's not intelligent. Bones are not intelligent. There's electrical circuitry in there that carries electrical impulses, but it's worthless unless there's somebody in there to operate it. There's somebody has to be in there to operate that electric, to define it, to communicate it in the same way that you do with a computer. But the problem is, once the light leaves the body, and what did we find a few weeks ago that the scientists found with this woman they were treating for epilepsy? Every time they touched the right angular gyrus of her brain, she got out of her body. Hey, I'm up on the ceiling. I'm looking down. You are? So they touch something else now? No, I'm here. Now, I'm here. I'm here. They touch the right angle. Here I am again. And what they found out is that when electricity stimulates the right angular gyrus of the brain, it's like one of those doors in the ShopRite. It opens. And you get out or get in, see? So we start to understand how all of this works. So the person leaves the body. And this is why over and over and over again, I have come against killing people, electrocuting people, executing people, because you're not executing the person at all. You're executing the body. The person gets out. And the natural instinct of this light is just like the instinct of a bird to fly down to the south and fly up to the north. The natural instinct of this light is to occupy a body. So you take a Jeffrey Dahmer, or you take the guy that blew up the building in Oklahoma and you execute him. Oh, we got rid of them. No, you didn't. You got rid of the body. Okay? The cop doesn't stop you and give you a ticket. A car gives you it gives a ticket to the car, gives you a ticket. Same thing. Light will return to a body. Now the point here is what's in that light. How is that light intelligent? How can you be, you know, light up in some way and be intelligent? And we talked last week about microchips, microprocessors. Take a whole computer and put it on a microprocessor. All things on little chips. And we're talking about primitive minds that created this stuff. So what is created by what we call God or nature? Say. It becomes really an interesting thing. Say. But can you identify with yourself without the body that you have? Look in the mirror. Say, hey, look at this body I've got. Well, where'd you get it from? Your mother and father had sex. They created that. Oh, God didn't create that. You look like your mother and father. You don't look like no God. You don't look like me. Because I look like a couple that got involved many years ago. What I'm saying is simply that your mother and father created your body. When your body was inside of your mother, in about the 3rd month when it was forming the pineal gland of the brain, an angle of light, we call an angel of light, came down, entered the pineal, nested in this, became the electrical impulse that operated this body. That's who you are. See? And so your body is a product of evolution, but you are a product of creation. That's why the big ridiculous thing is people fighting, I don't believe in evolution, I believe in creation. But they both are absolutely true. Right? The light that operates the body is creation, the body itself is evolution. And so life went on, and when it was proper, when the body had evolved to a point where it could be a host to the person, then light began to descend and enter bodies. So it's difficult, I understand, for you to conceive yourself as a speck of light. And I can identify with that. But how can we answer the question, say, after death? You know, will we see our relatives? Will we see Uncle John? Will we see Aunt Martha? Will we see my mother, your father? Will we see all of these people? Of course not. Of course not. Why? Because they're creatures of the earth. But you'll see them, but not them. Look, your name, what's your name? Joni Show? That's not your name. Joan Donnie? That's not your name. Kevin? That's not your name. That was given to you by the same people who had sex and made you. They gave you that name. You have another name that you don't even know right now. The only reason you don't know it is because you are impacted by the 5 senses, by the brain. That's all you can think. You're attached to that. Once you detach from that, then you know all things once again. You have to start seeing if this starts to make sense, but it's true, see. But how can we answer these questions? We've created all kinds of stories, and we're nuts. We're going to heaven. We're going to be with grandma. We've reached a point where when we talk of reality, of what this really is, we can't accept it. If I say, hey, this is electromagnetism, stay away from it, it's a cult, it's a new age. But if they say spirit, it's okay. But that's what electromagnetism is. It's the life force. And inside of each one of you, that's true. But we have a problem dealing with the reality because we've allowed religionists to create this Disneyland inside of us all, and then we go off to it and we pretend that we believe this stuff, and we know it's not reasonable, it's not logical. It can't be. See? I mean, right now, we have, everybody sitting here in this room, everybody watching on the television, and and in each side, each person, there's this adventure, knowing that things shouldn't be this way, knowing that things should be better, because there's part of your instinct that you brought with you as the light that says, why do I feel this way? Why is this so messed up? I mean, we got the government over there looking for weapons of mass destruction because they know damn well aren't there. But what do you do after you've killed thousands of people? I mean, you got to come up with something. And so, you get to a point where you say, here are the people that are leading all of these things, whether they be in this country, in Washington, if they be in Israel, they be in Egypt, Iraq, or wherever they are. And they're all attached to these religious principles of Christianity, Islam, Israel, and all of this stuff. And all they do for thousands of years is kill each other. Kill kids, kill everybody. Just bomb the out of everybody. I mean, people say, well, you go over to Iraq, maybe there's no weapons of mass destruction. But after all, look at all the bodies that we've dug up that were buried. You want to go to Vietnam and dig up all the bodies that are buried over there that we killed? For what? For nothing. But we killed them anyhow. Now they're building Hyatts and Marriotts and Holiday Inns over there with the same people that we thought were these devils. Right. So when you live in that and you see that displayed in your life, then you look at the guy next door, you look at the people that you may be living with, and you say, geez, on a small scale, I got my own Baghdad right here. In here, Not happy. So everything mushrooms, from the flea to the human being and on upward, everything kind of mushrooms itself. So we created these stories, and then you reach down to the point and say, how can a beautiful person filled with life, filled with expectations, filled with desires, filled with hopes, filled with fears, actually be a light particle, a light being. I hear people would tell me, I can't wait till the light beings get here. Well, look around, they're sitting right next to you. Light beings, we're all light beings that we've come down to the earth and got involved and screwed it all up. We were coming down here in order to straighten everything out, but we liked it so much that we screwed it up. See? So we're still waiting for more light beings to come down here, and if we have our way, when they get here, we'll encourage them to screw it up too. Okay. So, when we realize that there are many kinds of bodies that give off life and light, not just the kinds of bodies we are. There are elephants and birds and all kinds of strange things under the water, things that don't even look like things, and they move around, they eat things and everything. What the heck is that? I don't know what that is. Who made that? Bodies that have life flowing in them. And this is the important word. Everything that has life flowing through it, even if it's a tree, everything that has life flowing through it is conscious. Now that's the word. And here's where we're going to take a step in the direction of making this easier for you to deal with. You may have trouble considering yourself as light, okay? But when we realize that actually light is conscious, you're going to have less trouble understanding that this is consciousness. There's a consciousness in a tree. There's a consciousness in a flea. There's a consciousness in a dog. There's a consciousness in a cat. There's a consciousness in everything that lives. There's a consciousness in the tree. Absolutely. You'll find trees that will reach over and reach for particular places where there's water and all this kind of business. There's a consciousness. And so we're talking about something that understands, something that thinks, something that sees, something that hears. I've done this test for years with people, and it's so simple. You close your eyes. You say, well, I got to see with my eyes. I got to hear with my ears. Oh, you don't. If you were to stop in the silence right now and close your eyes, or you don't even have to close your eyes. But if you closed your eyes and visualize the home that you lived in as a little child, there it is. And you didn't use your eyes to see it. You can even see the color of it. And if you just stop for a minute and in silence, listen and hear your mother's voice, you can hear it. Listen to Elvis Presley sing, "You Ain't Nothing But a Hound Dog." You'll hear his exact voice inside of your head. Or whatever they sing today. Rod Stewart, yeah. Maggie, you can hear it right inside of it. You're not using your ears. And so consciousness doesn't need eyes. Consciousness doesn't need ears. Consciousness doesn't need a mouth. You can say inside of yourself, this guy up there is a screwball. This guy is a nut. And I don't even know. You're sitting there smiling at me. Oh, but he is. You know? But that's what you're saying. You don't need a mouth to say that. So we're talking about consciousness that can see, that can hear, that can understand, that can make decisions, that can feel, and has no body. And you know it, because the first thing you got to do, go to sleep. When you go to sleep, you put this body on a bed, and for all intents and purposes, it's dead. But you take off and you've gone out for the night. You're involved. You've got all kinds of strange characters you're involved with. Some of it gets pretty sexy. Where the heck were you? Oh, that was my brain. No, you don't tell me that was a piece of meat inside of your head cooking up all this stuff. That's not. It's you. It's that consciousness that was active. At the time when your body shut down, your consciousness got out. And when you start thinking in these ways, and you realize then that if we can ever come to grips with understanding this, this whole existence changes. We even approach that next question that so many people, what is the purpose of life? It has no purpose. It's just to be here. So we say, where would you rather be, here or dead? I'd rather be here. Why? I don't know. Because I don't know what's there. And not only that, If you're dead, you can't listen to Jimmy Buffett records. You can't go to Atlantic City. You can't eat. You can't have chocolate ice cream. I like this stuff. That's the purpose, just to be, to exist, to have fun, have a good time. And yet, we've saddled ourselves with religious maniacs who can't possibly allow us that because they made up rules that say, oh, you can't do that. Oh, this is wrong. Oh, that's wrong. You know? If you ever get a chance, I'm going to tell you something. If you have BBC America, this isn't a commercial, turn it on 11 o'clock at night and watch Graham Norton. Everything that religion says is obscene, immoral, and everything, it's all fun. And he creates it in the audience, and they always be, and you know, he says, well done. It's just having fun. They're just kidding. They're just having fun. But we've adapted a society that can't deal with that. And so that impregnates into your brain, if you would, and you get saddled with it, and you're unhappy. You can't deal with the people even who are around you. So we took the premise, if our body has an appearance, and it does, you can see what I look like, I can see what you look like, and I can see by looking at you somewhat of what your mother and father look like, because, you know, it's just like Ford makes this kind of a car, Chevy makes that kind of, not like they used to. You know, they've gotten very much looking alike because nowadays we've lost all sense of originality, you know. When I was young, I had a car with fins. I had a car with fins. I had a car with a thing on the top of the hood up in the front. You know, it was great. Looked like the Zeus or something. That was great. These were great cars. Green and white and pink and yellow. And Studebakers, you couldn't tell whether they were coming or going. Or they looked. I mean, this was great stuff. And everybody created. As soon as you saw it, hey, that's a Ford. That's a Chevy. That's a Caddy. You know it exactly. Nowadays, you don't know anything. It's like everything else in life. It's all blah. But in those days, it was hot stuff. Say, well, it's the same way with you. People still retain that individuality because you look like the one that created you, which is your mother and father. But we took this premise. If our body has an appearance, which it does, and consciousness coming from it, which it does, who is to question another kind of body with consciousness coming from it? In other words, if this electromagnetism is consciousness, and now I'll show you again down the road, scientific proof, quantum physicists, without any question in their mind that light is conscious. I mean, photons are called messenger particles. Photons are particles of light. Photons are what's inside of here, inside of your head. They're called messenger particles. And what are they? They're angles of light. And so what do we get from religion? We have messengers of God are angels. Well, what does that mean? Of course, what they're talking about. Photons. See? But if you go into your church and say, they're photons, oh, you've been to that cult place in Forked River, don't go there. Because they can't deal with science. They can't deal with reality. They have to deal with things. These are angels. There are no angels. There are no angels? Look, if we reach the point where you can agree that you are light, you are consciousness, you are this angle of light that descended into this body, okay, we're talking about no body now. So when I say there's no angels, there's consciousness. See? There's nobody with wings or anything. It's simply that it travels through ether, and so they put wings on it. But it's consciousness. And it's consciousness that actually is the motivating force that then seeks a body so it can exist, so it can experience. So consciousness waits. When there's a body ready, it enters. Now it can do all these physical things. The problem with it is the consciousness has glued itself to the left side. I know it's on your right, but you know where I come from. The consciousness has glued itself to the left side. So what it is bullets and bombs, okay? Pastors and preachers who haven't a clue. Presidents who, you know, God knows that you can't trust and can't believe for a minute. So you've got all of these people, and they're all crying Jesus or Allah and man, all of this stuff, and they have no concept of it at all. Why? Because the consciousness actually inhibits the right side, and it should be over here, and there are parts of the brain that are made ready to open and reconnect you back to the origins, reconnect you back to the higher life, but they're turned off. The switch is turned off, and the job here is to turn the switch on. That's why the whole Bible is filled with the stuff that says, cast your net to the right side, give the right hand, and all, sitting at the right hand of power. That's why with the sun, right, the sun celestially right ascends. Yesterday was June 21st, the longest day of the year. The sun had celestially right ascended up to the right to give light. It's the same thing that happens in the body, okay? And so here we are, totally submerged into the left, and all we know is bullets and bombs, going to funeral parlors and saying, Uncle Charlie, God needed a painter, so he killed, Uncle Charlie went up there to paint heaven. I mean, all this crap that we get involved in, for not realizing that if we energize here, that we will touch switches on the right side that will open the circuits and reconnect us to our true existence. How could you compare that? What happens if lights go out in a certain part of your house? What do you do? Hey, the lights are out in the bedroom. Something's wrong here. You go to the circuit breaker, and you find there's a switch that's not on, and so the lights are out. Okay? This is starting to make sense, doesn't it? You don't have to shake your head, because nobody will believe this. I could care less. But it makes sense. There's a switch off in here. Here's the problem with it. When you find that that switch is off in the circuit breaker of your house, that isn't the problem. The problem is something made the switch go off. Something threw the switch. So there is a problem, and you have to deal with that problem before you can reset the switch, don't you? We had a situation at home where, the circuit breaker went off, and we couldn't get this thing on, so we had to call the electrician. Electrician said, there's a short here. Because every time I would throw the breaker, it would go bzzz. I said, hey, sounds like something's wrong. So the electrician comes and says, there's a short here. And we have to deal with that. And he did. And threw the switch, it worked. But there's a problem inside of our heads. It isn't normal to blow people up. It isn't normal to fly planes into buildings. It isn't normal to drop bombs on people. That's all abnormal. But the reason is the switch is off. The light is off. And so it's dark in that part of the house. The Bush house, the Osama house, the Hussein house, the Sharon house, it's all dark because the switch is off. But the problem has to be corrected, and otherwise the energy has to be directed from the left side to the right side before that switch can be restored. And I'll tell you something, it has nothing to do with God, it has nothing to do with angels, it has nothing to do with religion, it's simply scientific principle, it's simply common sense, it's simply the way things are. It's nature. So, for our discussion, there is a person in a bird. There is a person in an ant. There is a person in an elephant and in a tree. Different type of person. We're just using the word person to try to describe. There's a different kind of person in all those things. Nonetheless, there is a conscious being in there. There is a life force in there. And we know that because when that life force is gone, there are dead bodies. Regardless of whether it's a flea, whether it's a tick, whether it's an ant, whether it's an elephant, whether what the heck it is, when the life force has gone out of it, it's a dead body. Is it hot in here, or do you need to... Everybody's all right? Do you need air in here, or the fan on or anything like that? Does anybody need the fan on? Okay. So this then makes, I think, would make sense to you. If it doesn't make sense to you, the next time you're home and you see a fly on the screen, just sit there and think and go into a meditative Plato-like state and say, what the heck is making that little thing go like that? You ever see myself go like that? What is making him do that? That little thing of yuck, because you know when you step on them, it's all yuck. But you know what? When I step on you, it's all yuck too, same yuck. But the little thing goes like that. Could it be doing this like we do? No, it's going like that. And the reason it goes like that is because it has consciousness. See? There's inside of that little body is consciousness to make it go like that. Okay, you can accept that in the body of the flea, in the body of the fly, in the body of the ant, in the body of the dog and the cat, the elephant, the ewe, and all this stuff. Let's take it up then, beyond ants and birds, beyond us, beyond humans. And look where, really, according to the Bible, the bodies are that impact us big time. Let's take a look at overhead 336. Well, no, let's take a look at overhead 297. See, I wanted to show you that first. Okay, got it right this time. Got it right side up. Isn't that great? Now, what you're looking at is a nebula called Eta Carina. The word Eta means seventh, and it is in the form of an angel. It's in the homunculus nebula also, which is the little man, and so forth. Behind this is the brightest light in the universe. It's, what do they say, something like 10,000 times brighter than our sun. Something that scientists say we have never seen anything like that. Nobody could ever see this. If this cosmic cloud was to dissipate and that sun behind there, it would extinguish. I mean, you couldn't. Now, coming from Eta Carina is a life force. It's electromagnetism. Two sets of rays have landed on planet Earth, one in January 99 and the other in March of 2003. If you can accept the consciousness in the life force in that flea or that fly, then we have to accept the consciousness and the life force in this, because there is a living thing coming from it. So if that little fly has a person in it, then this has a person in it. And if this has a person in it, then we open the Bible and it talks about the seventh angel. This thing looks like an angel, has an angelic appearance, but in addition to that, its name is Eta, which means seventh. The other part that drew me to it, because that I don't think was enough to reach that conclusion, but the other part that was kind of put the lid on it was the fact that in the scriptures it said this seventh is connected to the son of David. Well, the astrophysicist from the University of Minnesota who's in charge of this Eta Carina project's name is Chris Davidson. That's good enough. I mean, his name could have been Solly Schwartz, it could have been Ed Puke, whatever, I mean, but it was Davidson was his name. I'll take it. Okay, so let's say then, if this is the seventh angel that the book of Revelation is talking about, who is this person? Or who are these people? And since two have already landed on the earth, two groups have already landed on the earth, what form will they take? Okay. So now you get into the point where you use the Bible, which is not a holy book at all. The Bible is a mythological book. It's a book of Greek mythology. From beginning to end, the Old Testament became a Greek document in 300 BC called the Septuagint. The New Testament was always a Greek book. It was written by Hellenists, which were people who had some Jewish affiliations but lived in Greece and adopted the Greek ways and adopted the Greek ways of writing thousands of years ago. And they created these things such as the book of Revelation and all the other things in the Bible, which are Greek myths. And a Greek myth simply connects astronomy with anatomy and gives names and adventures to all of these things, identifying them as people, colliding with one another and having all of these exciting adventures. For what reason? So that when the human race evolves to a point of understanding science, it can begin to understand this. So Hubble has shown us this. We didn't even know this existed up there along with the other things. But what I'm asking you to do here is to consider then that if you've accepted the fact that you have a body and you are a person, consciousness, an ant has a body and an ant has a person, consciousness, as is an elephant, we take it above the earth and say this has a body and there is electromagnetism, there's light coming from this, then we have to judge it. This is consciousness, which would make this a person. Who is that person? Let's go to 30. Do you have overhead 337 there? Or? 336? Yeah, let's see 336. 336 you're not going to be able to see anyhow, so don't worry about it. But what I wanted to tell you, what I wanted to point with 336 is this. Washington, October the 18th. A gamma ray burst was spotted last January. It took investigators 8 months to figure out that it came from Eta Carina. Okay? So January 1999 is when this thing came. It's from this monstrous dying star, more than 30 times massive as the sun. Can you imagine? So, oh wait a minute now. If that has energy coming from it, if it's the light that no one can look upon and live, if it hides behind the angel's wings, how come? Maybe it's God. That'll really get the Christians, freaking and throwing rocks here. But so what? Maybe it's God. Say, well, how can you call God light? Well, this is what the Bible says. It says God is not a man, God is light. But what I'm trying to say to you, it's consciousness. You see? It's it's not the body itself, it's not the cloud, it's not the sun. It's the consciousness that comes from it. See? Let's look at 337. So here's okay, I made this bigger so that I could prove it in case any of you say, he's making this up. No, I didn't. It from the southern constellation Carina, Eta Carina. Well, that's where it came from. And so that, you can take that out. That would mean, if it's from Eta Carina, that a personality, a person identified with a specific body, has come to the earth for a specific reason, and that could be the reason outlined in the book of Revelation, which could explain the chaos going on the earth today. How much time is that, John? I don't know where we're at.
Yeah, about 18 minutes.
Oh, okay. 18 minutes. Well, that's good. 15 minutes. Right. The person, though, that we're talking about with this Eta Carina business is not a human being. Okay? But we have no problem with that because we said there's a person in a tree. You know how we're using the word person? Life force. Okay. But the person is not a human being, it's a cosmic being. And the light that comes from it is an angle of light. Now, how do I know that? Because Einstein proved that when light comes through the cosmos, when it passes by bodies, it angles. Okay? There's a refraction principle. Because of the gravity in these celestial bodies, it causes light to angle. So you have coming from Eta Carina an angle of light, a photon. And in the Bible, we would refer to that as an angel, a messenger. So then the point would be, what message does Eta Carina bring us? And then we could look in the Bible to see what the message is. And down the road we will, and I'll explain that to you. So I want this to be reasonable to you. This Eta Carina that we just looked at is a body. It is a cosmic body. When you put Eta Carina's picture, it is a cosmic body. It's a different kind of body than you have. But an ant and an elephant have a different kind of body than you have. So it's a body. And there's light coming from that body. Light in the form of particles, not unlike the light that's inside of your body that's making this thing move, the consciousness that's making decisions. Your brain is not capable of making decisions. Your brain is a piece of chocolates. It's a piece of meat up there. It's got electrical circuits in it, but it only can make decisions when you make the... In other words, it only can transmit the decisions that you make. See, the body depends on consciousness in order for it to do things. If I say to you, raise your hand, you can either say yes or no. Your body is waiting for you to make a decision. Everybody out here has made a decision. No. Anybody want to make a decision? Yes? Mary, raise your hand. Oh, look, we have two that raised their hand. Which means what? They made a decision. The body didn't make it. The computer. Oh, you got this computer. Look at this. I put this in. Look at that. Not great? Who put it in? You put it in. The computer didn't put it in. So this is the point. This Eta Carina is a cosmic body.
and it has light in the form of particles that are not unlike the light in you. So if we look at our body, we look at the ants and the elephants and the trees and say there's a person because there's a life force operating it, then we can't say that Eta Carina is not a person because there's a life force operating that. And the life force has sent life particles down to the earth, which we have just seen from science. If that makes sense to you, now you have to start to say, forget the body, if inside of me there's some invisible thing that's making decisions and doing all of this stuff, and that's a person, and it's light, it's electromagnetism, and I consider that to be consciousness, then inside of you, is it reasonable to say that because there is light coming down from this, that this is developing that light, that this is consciousness, that this is a person? Now that's either proven to you or it's not. It depends on how you feel inside of yourself. If you agree that the person or persons who make up Eta Carina have begun arriving on planet Earth, then you got really something interesting to think about. The article that we just looked at a minute ago claims that the Eta Carina occurred on January 99, and that was the first person to arrive, or the first group to arrive from Eta Carina. But there's more, because someone else has also arrived to join those who came down in January 99. If we look at overhead 651, once again it's probably going to be too small for you to see, but anyhow, it says here that 2 billion years ago in a faraway galaxy, giant star, blah, 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 the light from that explosion, Eta Carina, finally reached Earth at 6:37 a.m. on March 29th, 2003, igniting a frenzy of activity. That's from Space Daily. So they're coming. I mean, you know, it wasn't just that it came once. It came twice. And so it's arrived. Okay? So you see that arrival. So now, as I pointed out before, what we're talking about here, we're not talking about angels. There are no angels. There is no Jesus in you. There is no God in you. These are words used to describe this light that is life. These are words used to describe this consciousness. The consciousness that we have on Earth, which is pretty nasty, and the consciousness which can down from above, which can raise this so that people on this Earth can start enjoying their existence instead of hoping that either they can get out of this or get rid of this or move someplace else, or I'm fed up with this, or put me on a train, or bang. That's not the way it's supposed to be. You can turn that off. Huh? Now, here's the part where really it starts to get interesting. Moving away from considering the people who created you, who's your mother and father. There is a name that describes you. There is a name. And I know you have a name here, Mary or Joni or Bill or Kevin or whatever that may be. That's nothing. That's something somebody gave you. It's nothing. But you have a name that nobody knows, because the person inside of you has a name that was given which is not of the earth. You know it. You can't recall it now because your brain, you know, the activity on that side is shut off. So it has to start to make sense of you. So if you can affect others. Now here's the point. You affect others. You have an effect on people. Sometimes it's not nice. Sometimes it's good. Geez, I'm glad he's here. Gee, I'm glad you come over. Other times it's, oh, they're here again. What is this? I didn't. And then they open the door. Oh, hi. Hey, come on in. You know, it's all a fraud. You don't want them there. See? And so you affect others and they affect you. And what is it that affects? Is it a body? The tree doesn't affect you. A cat, dog, they don't necessarily affect. But these people affect. It's not the body. It's what's inside that body. Because sometimes they come over and you're not happy. Somebody else comes over. Hey, boy, am I glad to see you. How come you're glad to see that person? You weren't glad to see that person. Because it's something inside. It's the light. It's the consciousness inside which either makes you happy or makes you sad. And you can sit here and say, I'm fed up. This is all screwed up. I can't stand it. I don't know why I feel this way. You feel this way because of the people next to you. And until they are also raised out of this mess, they're going to continue to impact you. You can meditate. You can go to psychoanalysts. You can go to psychiatrists. You can go all these. As long as this person rubs you the wrong way, is near you, and as long as these people cause you trouble, there's no way out. And so the crucial thing, and that is why Eta Carina comes out, the crucial thing is something has to come from above, not just to change you, but to change her and them and you and then all, change everyone. Or it doesn't work. See? So if you can affect others, they can affect you, then the light coming from Eta Carina will affect all of us. And if we can look at that light coming from Eta Carina as a person, a life force. What about this one? Look at overhead 244. Then look at this life force, which is supposed to explode between 2002 and 2005, called supernova 1987A, with this center eye on fire, encased between these two other eyes. And the Bible's saying, if your eye be single, your body will fill with light, meaning the pineal explodes. Here's a cosmic pineal that's going to explode between 2002 2005, according to the National Aeronautics and Space Agency. Not me. Not some religious person. This is true. It's different from religion. This is true. Okay? So, but who is this person? Who is that person? What does that person have in store for us? Look at overhead 650. We talk about the age of Aquarius. That's the symbol. Who is this? Who is this? Oh, does this have an effect on us? Let me tell you something. The earth and the people of the earth for the first 100 billion years knew nothing. Couldn't make a wheel already. Didn't know how to make a fire. Didn't know nothing. In the last 100 years, everything. 100 years ago, somebody discovered a light bulb. Bingo. And it all came. Something happened. The electro energy from this caused a particular part of activity in the brain, opened a circuit, and people started to get smart. Who is this? Look at 659. This one, I don't know how it's going to come out. Yeah, it'll come out pretty good. You know what this is? It's Uranus. Uranus is the controlling planet in this particular age. You know what it does? According to historians, that are into this stuff, it turns everything upside down. Causes everything to get screwed up. Pretty much got your answer. Uranus changes things. Traditional things come crashing to the ground. And Uranus does that. It acts with an electrical impulse that comes down from it, and it changes the way we think. It changes the way society thinks. And it just makes everything screwed up, even in your head. But you know the interesting part about this? The word Uranus, U-R-A-N-U-S, in Greek is O-U-R-A-N-O-S. When Jesus in the Bible, which is written in Greek, says the kingdom of heaven is at hand, he uses the word heaven, which in Greek is Uranus. So literally, it was saying the kingdom of Uranus is at hand. Who is this person? There's living. Wait a minute. When you see, from Uranus, from all of the other celestial bodies, not most, you have electromagnetism coming like that. From Uranus, it comes all over the place. And it whips. It whips off the end of it like a fish's tail. Crazy stuff. And who's this? Look at the overhead. Let me ask you this one. Electromagnet? Who's this? Who the heck is this? This is the eye of the Hourglass Nebula. 5 minutes. The eye of the Hourglass Nebula sending down electromagnetism on your... Who the heck is that? And when I had this operation, I took, for the doctor that helped me out there, I took him a picture of this because he's an eye doctor, eye surgeon. And he looked at it and he stared at it. He said, this is a human eye. What's a human eye doing up in the sky? Who is this? So what I'm saying to you now, what you're looking at here, on the premise that we've built here, is these are all people. Not people like you, but people. Different bodies, yes. But nonetheless, energy coming off of them, consciousness coming off of them. Okay, you can take it down. So everything is natural. There are no angels. There is no God as we understand. There is no Jesus as we understand. But all of this exists in a real, natural way that is not religious, not spiritual. It is real. It is electromagnetism. It is universal. But the most important thing is it is intelligence. It is consciousness. It is awareness. So that when you get out of this body, you are aware. You are conscious. You understand. Real quick. Remember I tell you to keep a green light at your house? Remember talking about these things coming down? Let me just show you real quick. This comes from Amanda Kine. A rare, bright green meteor flew across the sky early yesterday. This was seen in Australia. Lovely to look at, you know. But that's all I want to do. I don't want to go any further with it. It's a rare green meteor. Let it go with that. Take it off, because that'll be coming up again. So all of this is abundantly natural, nothing religious, nothing spiritual, and it happens the same for everybody. It is the way that the photon works in your body. It is the way that the photon works in the universe. It is the way that the photon works in all things. Everything in the biblical story occurs in the kingdom of God. And the Jesus of the biblical story says the kingdom of God's inside of you because of all of this. I mean, everything that I'm telling you, you can go into the Bible and find it and confirm it. It's the way that this works. You see, Jesus is born of a virgin. In other words, in virgin consciousness, something new happens inside of you. In other words, when you are in meditation and there is no thought in your mind, something starts to develop in you, which the mythologists called Jesus. Jesus is a word given to that new thing that starts to electrically stimulate the brain, so you begin then to think different, think higher. When you separate from the thoughts of the mind, when you turn them off, you cause an event to occur electrically in the body. It's like when your doctor tells you, take this and you'll have a positive reaction. If you do this, something is going to happen. Well, that's the same thing. When the scriptures say, when you practice the single eye, when you do this, something inside of you happens. Nothing angelic, nothing Jesus, nothing religious. It's a perfectly normal electromagnetic phenomena that when you do this, it energizes or causes electrical circuitry in the right hemisphere to activate. You separate from thought. The inner light person cuts off the activity to the brain. That means you. And when you do that, you're opening up a circuitry to the right side, and that is what's called Jesus. And the truth that many people have a difficult time with is that there is no Jesus in you. There is no God in you. Inside is stuff, gooey, bloody, bony stuff. But there is a force, there is an energy, there's a life force which is created by the universe, by God, whatever you want to call it, inside of you. And when you follow the instructions that have been laid down by those of the ancient times, you activate that and cause this change. And it goes, just imagine, if everybody in the world activated this and caused the change, that's the end of the war. That's the end of the killing. That's the end of the raping and pillaging. 1 minute. That's the end of all of the fear and the guilt and the hate, and people start to use the earth with the... It's the end of the animal abuse. It's all people start to use the earth in a way that, we can't even envision now. The way that it was intended. And the way mythologists was to take us to the natural electromagnetic activity of the body and the earth and the cosmos, and give each names representing gods and demons and so forth. That's what mythology is. The god comes from the north and the god comes from the south, and they collide, and there's plants across the earth, destruction. They're talking about hot and cold colliding, and you have a tornado. So perfectly natural occurrences were described in adventure stories, and unfortunately most of the world is still looking at the adventure story and not at the meaning of it. And so we'll go on and we'll talk of this, and it really, it gets more interesting because then we'll step outside and discuss you outside of the body. What goes on when you're not inside of this car that you're driving around in? What do you do? Of course, you should get a pretty good idea, because last night when your body went to sleep, you jumped out anyhow, and so you can think of that. But nonetheless, there are things that go on. It's very, very interesting, and it's a very, very logical way of how we communicate and how we do things, because it's intelligent and it's conscious.